Things are hotting up at Victorinox and we have some more new Alox models, and these now add features that we've never seen before on a medium-sized Swiss Army knife, but which have been widely requested. Alox knives are the ones which feature the aluminium scales and have been getting a lot of attention this year, and I reviewed a range of new knifeless Alox designs recently which some saw as a backward step, but to me have actually proved really useful. For example, this scissor only Companion X Alox is now in my travel essentials kit when I fly with hand luggage only, and avoided confiscation on a round trip last week to Italy from the UK. And this Companion Slim Alox is now permanently in my wallet pouch, and being knifeless means it can go to places and provide useful utility when knives are not allowed, such as schools and concerts and some public buildings and so on. This new release though adds functionality rather than taking it away, and the blade is back. This is called the Alox Refined Range, and it immediately looks different from any other Alox model thanks to these skeletonized aluminium scales, which I personally think look great. Now in this range there are 3 different models to choose from, and they are all the familiar 93mm Alox size, and each is available in 3 colours. We have red, silver and dark blue, all good options, and I'm going to run through each model in turn, starting with this one here, which is called the One Fold, and as the name suggests, this is a simple single bladed folding knife with no other tools. Looking around the outside of this slim single layer knife, we have the new skeletonized scales on the front, and these are also mirrored on the back, and when I turn it over you will immediately see something which people have been crying out for years from Victorinox, and that is a pocket clip. No Swiss Army knife in this medium-sized range, which includes all the familiar 91mm models, has ever in the 140-year history of Victorinox sported an integrated pocket clip, at least as far as I know. So this is a big deal, and I have to say the implementation is great. It's deep carry for a start, meaning it's very discreet in the pocket, and the design minimises bulk by recessing the back plate of the clip into the scales so it sits flush, and the steel is springy with lots of flex, and I have to say it does work really well. I often find pocket clips on knives can be too stiff or too short or too bulky, and often they don't fit easily over thicker fabric, like say with a jeans pocket. You don't get that problem here though. This knife slips in and out of the pocket with ease, making it a joy to use. It is though worth noting that the clip being made out of quite thin steel could be bent back and put out of shape with the application of sufficient force, and because it is non-removable, I'm not sure how fixable that would be if that were to happen. However, I'm sure Victorinox will have carefully tested and experimented to get this aspect just right. As a 1-layer single blade model, this is quite slim at 9.5mm thick and weighs in at 54 grams or 1.9 ounces, making it easy to carry. And when I open up that single blade, the next unique feature for this size of knife becomes apparent, because this blade locks. Another feature which has been requested for years and has been absent up until now on all medium-sized Swiss Army knives, making this another big deal. Ordinarily, Victorinox uses a non-lock-in slip joint with a back spring to hold the blade firmly in place, like we see here. With this lock-in version, the slip joint back spring still remains, and Victorinox have then added a liner lock which then locks the knife securely in place. And that does mean to release the blade you need to overcome the tension of the liner lock, which does require a bit of force, and then you also have to overcome the tension of the slip joint back spring, which by definition also requires some force. And this does mean your thumb is exposed to the closing blade whilst you overcome that tension, and to me that does feel a bit risky. Whereas with the non-lock-in slip joint knives you are always able to keep your fingers well clear of the closing blade. Now Victorinox have used this method before on their larger knives like this Forester here, but this has a firm half stop to hold the blade back whilst you get your fingers out of the way, whereas the Alox doesn't. Other knives I've used with a liner lock have a free pivoting blade, so whilst your thumb is in the way of the blade to release the liner lock, you do not then have to apply force to overcome spring tension on the blade itself, which feels much less risky. Now this is perhaps just something to be aware of, as I'm sure with regular use this will become second nature, and the upside is that the locked blade does feel super secure. The locking blade of course does create another more limiting issue depending on where you live, because here in the UK locking knives, despite being safer to use, have been put into the same category as fixed blade knives, and that makes them illegal to carry in public without what is termed good reason. And as I understand it, the same is also true for Ireland, France, Spain, Australia, New Zealand, Japan, and no doubt a few other places as well, ruling this range out for everyday carry in those areas, which is a real shame. The steel used in this knife is the same as we've seen used in previous Swiss Army knives, and that prioritises corrosion resistance, toughness and ease of sharpening over things like edge retention and hardness. And it's worth noting that the Alox blades, and most Alox tools for that matter, are thicker and more heavy duty than that used in the familiar 91mm models, and the blade, as you might expect, comes in at under 3 inches in length. Okay, let's have a look at the two remaining models. This next one is called the Synergy Alox, and it's a 2-layer model with the same locking blade we have just seen, and in this case it is slightly offset, which allows the blade to share this layer with this nail file and nail cleaner combination, which is very effective in use and very nice to have. And in the other layer we have two tools. First, the familiar 7mm flathead scraper pry tool with bottle opener and wire stripper, always good to see. And second, we have one of the newest tools, the package opener, so you can keep the main blade sharp for other jobs. And this tool includes a 3mm flathead screwdriver, which also works with some Phillips screws. And of course you have the new pocket clip here too. This one is 12mm thick and weighs in at 75 grams or 2.7 ounces. And the last model in the range is this 3-layer Synergy X, which is the Synergy we've just seen with the addition of Victorinox's great scissors, which are actually the same size as we see on the 91mm models like my compact, and a tool I wouldn't really want to be without, and that makes this one my favourite out of the range. The Synergy X is 15mm thick and weighs 99 grams or 3.5 ounces. Okay, let's look at the pricing, noting that these are all made in Switzerland. The single blade one fold here is expected to retail at £49, 49 euros or $56. The Synergy is £69, 69 euros or $78, and the Synergy X is £85, 85 euros or $96. And Victorinox pricing has always been very good for the Swiss quality on offer, and these, in my view, are no exception. So what are my overall thoughts? Well, the new scale design and pocket clip are a real win, and I love all the colour options too. I'd like the locking knife more if it had a half stop for added safety, but I can't carry it in the UK anyway with a lock, so I'm hoping a slip joint version comes along in the future. As for which model I prefer, when it comes to the one fold, there is a huge amount of competition when it comes to a single blade knife, and that makes it much harder for Victorinox to compete in a field with better steels and arguably easier to use lock-in, single-handed opening, lots of scale choices and so on. Although with this new pocket clip and this really nice scale design, this I think is going to have wider appeal, and when you factor in the value proposition for a quality brand, it does actually start to make sense. When it comes to adding more tools and more functionality, that's where Victorinox starts to shine. The tools on the Synergy are practical and desirable, and I like a 2-layer knife for everyday carry, making this a really good option. However, I personally wouldn't want to be without these scissors, which I use every day on my compact, which brings me to the Synergy X. This has a great overall tool set with the scissors, that great design, the lock-in knife for those that can, and the pocket clip, making this the one for me, if only I could carry it. But would it replace my long-standing compact for everyday carry? Well, no, I don't think it would. At 3 layers, the Synergy X, like my Pioneer X here, is just a bit too heavy and bulky for me for everyday carry. To win me over, I'm going to need just 2 layers with a knife, that will be a slip joint for me, scissors, and a screwdriver like we see here with this combination tool in the compact. And then you can count me in. But there's no doubt that this new Alox Refined range does move the needle, offering features that have been requested for years, 140 years most probably in fact, and they will no doubt appeal to many. And if you haven't already seen it, here is the earlier video I mentioned featuring the launch of the new Alox bladeless range, which I've now put into good use. And that's it for this one. I hope that's been useful. Thank you as always for watching, and I hope you can join me for the next one.